Hey guys, Jamie here. I'm here this week with Jason from We at One. He has some awesome ideas and thoughts to share with us today around the journey into self-healing, IBS, food as a natural medicine. So we're going to get into all of that. It's going to be awesome. How are you, Jason? Thanks for joining us.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a crazy week with the election and everything, but
Oh yeah.
I think we're happy with the outcome. So
I think the world is.
yeah, exactly. So how's life in the UK going at the moment with lockdown?
Yeah, life in the UK is going okay, to be honest. So it's really strange. Obviously, we've got to we've got to go back into this. I mean, it's not like we haven't been here before. It's I can't work for a month, so that is what it
Yeah.
is. But to be honest, it allows me a little bit more me time. It gives me more time to work on my business. It gives me more time to work on my life coaching. And if I'm honest, and a month off of working with my sort of conventional regular job, it's not so much of a bad thing. We're covered. The UK government are giving us grants if you're eligible, which luckily I am. So that will be enough to get by, albeit it's definitely not as much as what I'm used to getting. But,
Yeah.
you know, I can get by on it, which is fine. So, roll on December.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things with, I mean, I was only in lockdown for a couple of months in Sydney, but you got to count your blessings. I mean, it is hard to be isolated and then the financially and all of that, but then it's also a season of like self-reflection and rest, and can be a season of self-reflection and rest. And
Definitely, definitely. I think it all depends on how you take it. If you're somebody who's got a lot of outgoings, I'm sure this is going to make life a lot more difficult. Obviously, there's bills to
yeah,
pay, and there are things that that you need to make payment for, and I totally understand that. However, if you're somebody who is proactive and perhaps you may be somebody who might be feeling that actually, do you know what, this might create a perfect opportunity for me to um, try something else, for me to take on something else, or for me to reassess what's important to me, what's not important to me, what am I needlessly paying for, what do I
yeah.
actually, what is society dictating that I should have versus what do I actually want to spend my money on. It might be a good time for self-reflection, just depending on how
Yeah.
you perceive it.
Here's the real question though, is are you going to start a TikTok?
Well, I can't dance very well, so I doubt
Okay.
it.
Okay. Well,
But I'm open to it.
I won't be holding in with bated breath to see your TikTok.
Do you know what? If lockdown gets really boring and they extend it over here to past December, and I'm drinking enough alcohol, I might just give it a go.
Well, that's what happened to me during lockdown. I got a
I
TikTok.
saw, I
I have
saw.
since deleted it, but
Oh, what? You rocked at it.
I, like I just keep trying to set boundaries and
You can
um
see that awkward smile on your face now. Like, yeah, it's one of those things that happen, but we don't talk about it.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um so do you find, and in the seasons of lockdown, like we did talk about pet peeves. So what's
Sure.
your pet peeve, and has does lockdown exacerbate it?
Oh my God, yes, I have a pet peeve. It's something that I feel so strongly about, and it's something that's just so um, it's so like ridiculous. But it okay. So my pet peeve. I
I'm
know
anticipating.
no, this is it's so ridiculous, but I think a lot of people can probably relate to it as well. So my pet peeve would be if I'm about to join a queue and somebody just beats me to it. That is my ultimate pet peeve.
Oh,
So let's say, for instance, especially during lockdown, there are only shops, banks, post offices are only open for a certain amount of time. Now you have to get yourself down to that place before it closes.
yeah.
So let's say, for instance, I can see it visually. I've got the post office in front of me. I know that I'm about to join it. I've got a lot of stuff I need to do. I'm going to try and do it all in one hit so that I don't have to make repeat visits because it has become really annoying. I'm about to join the queue, then all of a sudden, somebody beats me to it. And there'll be
Oh,
someone who, out of nowhere, they'll like sort of sidestep me. Or we might be walking and in the same place on opposite ends, and we can both see each other, and we both know that we're going for the same queue. And then they walk just that little bit faster and get there just before me. Ah,
and you're just
so
like,
bad.
you go into a rage.
Oh man, yeah, it's like a silent, like UK style rage as well, where I just stand there tutting and going, oh,
Well, and
instead of actually
for
saying,
yeah, and for our American listeners, a queue is a line. So you would
oh yeah,
when you're standing in line. Um, that's hilarious because that doesn't bother me, and this is why I love this segment because like things that bother one person aren't gonna necessarily bother another. And
yeah. I also find that there'll be some people that will add insult to injury when I go to join the line as well. There'll be the person who's got a complaint, or there'll be somebody who is going to take up some like needless time. So they've just beaten you to it, and then you're saying to yourself, if only I'd been like 20 seconds earlier, I could have beaten them to the queue. Then I wouldn't have to wait that extra amount of time to get what I need to get done. And then would you believe that they'll be the person to be standing there going, oh, so one of my post didn't get delivered, or I want to make a complaint, go and get your manager. And I'm standing there going, oh my God, oh Jesus.
uh, I feel like I've heard that in the UK there's this whole etiquette around queues and standing in
Oh,
the queue. Is this
big
is
time.
this real?
Yeah, yeah, this is a thing. This is a thing. So it works under the assumption of politeness.
Yeah.
So we have this thing in the UK where politeness trumps all. So, for instance, if you're about to join a line and somebody just beats you to it, what we should do is say, "Excuse me, I was going there first. You've clearly jumped the line. Would you mind standing behind me?" But we don't. What we do is we think something horrible about them, and then we go, "Oh," or we tut.
And you can
And
tell the person is
oh yeah,
annoyed.
yeah, and they'll just flat out ignore it. So that way, we're not breaking this kind of impoliteness etiquette. We're just kind of like silent. One of us is silently annoyed at the other, and the other one is grinning with glee because they've done something that we're not going to say about. It's just this weird politeness thing that we've got. Okay, for instance, if you're in the subway in London and the doors open, and the British thing to do would be to let everybody out first, and then you join.
Yep.
Then you get onto the subway afterwards. What some people do is they just completely skip that, and they'll cut straight in front of you, and they'll be pushing in to grab themselves a seat even before everybody else has come out.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's kind of
rude.
like, yeah, it's breaking.
That's common etiquette here and as well
Yeah.
as in France. I haven't done public transportation in the US much, but yeah,
Oh,
that's definitely
you're
one of
lucky.
those rules where it's like you need to step aside and let me out before.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
why it bothers me so much, but I guess because we have this weird UK etiquette where sort of politeness is like an assumed thing. So when someone dares to break it, we're like, oh, no, that's not what we do.
What would happen if you told the person that you were like that was your place in line or in the queue?
Do you know what? It's never happened. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think, in all likelihood, they'll probably just go, "Oh, sorry," or something like that. We love saying sorry in the UK. Sorry. And then they'll just go behind us. But I kind of feel like I just can't be bothered with the confrontation, especially when
Yeah.
we're all in this kind of like this weird lockdown mode where we're, kind of tense and on the edge, and we're unsure and nervous anyway. So I tend to just let it go and go, oh, well, never mind, it's happened. But it doesn't stop me from being that little bit annoyed.
That yeah, I feel that. Yeah, so with I guess kind of lockdown and everything, you obviously have IBS and you talk about that a lot on your Instagram page, which is we at
Sure.
one. And how has that affected you in this season and your IBS? Have you had flare-ups? How
To
are
be
you
honest,
managing
no.
that?
To be honest, no, not really. I think I've mostly got that under control now. So what I do as part of my page and what I do as part of my business is that I'm guiding people and helping people and sharing knowledge that I have in order um, to help them rid themselves of IBS, or at least bring it under control. Even if it's like a 5% improvement, a marginal improvement's better than no
Yeah.
improvement. So that's something I feel really sort of strongly about. Had the stress of it get me, then well, probably undoubtedly, I would have an IBS flare up. So let's say, for instance, if we've gone into lockdown and I had loads and loads of repayments to make, or I had so many commitments that have suddenly, vanished and disappeared. I did actually have a major one. I won't go into it, but I did have something that had to stop for me for this year, and I did feel stressed and I felt annoyed about it. But through the methods that I've learned in which to deal with this, I could kind of rid myself of that energy. And so
Yeah.
the IBS symptoms didn't come, didn't hit me. Whereas had I not done that, I feel like, yeah, for sure, I would have been symptomatic for sure.
Yeah, well, and I think that's actually really cool that you say that because kind of the research and the statistics around IBS is that it's really not curable, one. And secondly, they don't know the cause. Like there's just so much uncertainty
Yeah,
around IBS as a condition, which for
exactly.
those of our listeners that don't know what that means, it's irritable bowel syndrome. It's essentially something that affects the gut, from what I understand. I mean, I've kind of had it as well. Um,
I think
and
we all
yes,
have to a degree
yeah,
at some point in our lives. We all would have suffered with irritable bowel syndrome at some point, and that's basically what you've just said. Sort of verifies why doctors can't cure this, because it's in you know, and essentially it's incurable because it's something that we live with. However, we can manage the symptoms well, and we can rid ourselves of this if we make lifestyle adjustments.
yeah,
Doctors can't give you that sort of that pill or pamphlet about it and say, here you go, this is all you need to know, you know, job done, because it's such a fluctuating problem. It's something that affects us all differently. Depending on who we are is definitely going to depend upon how what our symptoms will be, and how it's received by us, and also how we act towards it. So for me, I was a chronic sufferer of IBS. You know, I had IBS D, which is IBS diarrhea, and
oh,
it was just something that dogged my life for such a long time, as far back as I can remember. And basically, I couldn't. It didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do, but I had to make 100 contingency plans every time I wanted
yeah,
to do something in an unsafe place. And unsafe meaning somewhere where I knew a restroom or a toilet wasn't going to be available to me. So I had to kind of go into this massive anxiety mode about how I'm going to deal with this if if one of my symptoms flares up. So where am I going to go? Who am I going to notify? Am I going to embarrass myself in front of loads of people?
yeah,
Are new people going to be there? Are they going to be talking about me? Are they going to sympathize or laugh with me? It was something that, you know, it was, I would think 100 thoughts about this, which in turn would set off anxiety within myself, and then in turn would exacerbate the
yep,
symptoms.
exactly.
So that one of the key things that I had to learn how to do was to accept what was going on and learn how to manage this, and learn how to rid myself of the anxiety, which in turn counts towards helping um, counts towards helping me rid myself of the symptoms, and therefore almost not quite, but almost removing IBS from me completely. However, when I do get stressed, anxious, nervous, which we all do, we're all human, so
Yeah,
we're all going to experience something like this at some point. The symptoms do start to come back, but instead of me going into panic mode about this, I now know that this is manageable, and I've learnt methods and ways in which to deal with this. And so if a symptom does occur, it usually doesn't last very long. It's gone within, hopefully within a couple of hours, whereas before it might have taken a few days.
yeah. Well, that's really interesting because we do have quite a few IBS people with IBS in the community, and I mean, even myself, the whole anxiety thing that you're talking about. How do you think you put your IBS into remission or healed from it or kind of got yourself to a point where it doesn't affect you as much anymore? What would you say are the kind of the main things that have helped you?
Yeah, sure. So I would say the main thing that helped me to rid myself of this is to do massive internal work, and by that I mean I had to basically send myself on a healing journey. I had to start dropping the ego that I had,
Yeah.
that surrounded me and that surrounded my life. I'm a very positive, uplifting, energetic person, but with that, ego plays an enormous part in sort of, you know, in who I was as a person. So if
Yeah.
I couldn't sort myself out, I would kind of, I would feel as though that, you know, if I can't sort myself out, nobody can. You know, the only person that I could blame is myself. Whereas the answer to this was to actually be kinder to myself and to start looking at myself through
Yeah.
a third person perspective. So I started to learn things like meditation, which really helped. That taught me to be calm, to be still, and to be present with what was going on. When I had IBS attacks and flare ups and all the rest of it, what used to happen is that that would send me into a panic mode, which of course would send me into either a panic attack, or it would send me into this massive sort of anxiety spiral where I'd be sitting
Yeah.
there kind of like swallowed up in my own thoughts. My friends and, friends around me would be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Now, when you are asking somebody who is going through a panic attack or an anxiety attack if they're okay, when you start to have more and more eyes around you and they start to sort of close in around you and they go, "Are you okay? Are
Yeah.
you okay?" They're trying to comfort you. They're trying to do their best for you, which I'm sure some of your listeners might be able to resonate with this. But what tends to happen is that it makes the problem so much worse because you're telling them and you're telling yourself, "I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." But really, you're not fine. You're
Yeah.
suffering internally so badly. So what I learned how to do was I learned breathing techniques to see myself through it. I learned grounding techniques as well. And I also learned how to rewire my brain to imagine myself from a third person perspective. So, for instance, if you're going through a panic attack, or if you're going through an anxiety attack, or you feel like the symptoms are flaring up in you, I found that what I started to do was to be present with it and to understand and to acknowledge it and go, okay, this is happening. What am I going to do about this? Whereas
Yeah.
before, I would try and run from the symptoms and I would try and escape them and say like, oh my God, this is happening. Stop. Oh my God, we're going to we're going to a nightclub, or we're going to a restaurant, or we're going somewhere. How's this going to look? What are people going to think of me? How am I going to deal with this? When actually the best way to do it was to look at it from that third person perspective and go, okay, this is happening. All right, I recognize these are the symptoms, and then just breathe through it, you know? I found a great technique was to imagine that the symptoms that I had were like black smoke within me. And then what I would do is I would place my hand where I felt this black smoke was. So, for instance, if it was an anxiety attack, it would probably be my head. Or if it was a stomach attack or an IBS attack, I would put my hand on my belly. And then what I would do is I would do a deep breath in, and I would imagine white light going in and a deep breath out. And each time I breathed out, I imagined the black smoke was traveling up and through me and out of
Wow.
me. And that way,
Yeah.
slowly, 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 it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, within an instant or within 10 minutes. The more I practice it, the better I become at it. But within half an hour, it's gone. Whereas beforehand, that might have been the night cancelled for me. So that was something that
Yeah.
really, really helps.
That's interesting that you say that because there's several things in that, which is I found for me on my healing journey, that was this whole idea of, and I think a lot of people in the chronic illness community face this, is especially when you're kind of on the recovery trajectory, because there's almost like PTSD when you're dealing with
Sure,
it. Like when I
for
was
sure.
recovering from CFS, I would have a small flare up, and
Mm,
then I would start to go into this, oh my gosh, am I going to have a crash? Am I going to get chronic fatigue syndrome again? Am I going to? And it took
yeah,
me a while to move past the anxiety and be like, and similar to what you're saying is just saying to myself, look, I'm going to get through this. I've gotten through it before. It's going to get better. And it's that inner dialogue. And then, so
absolutely.
that's one thing. And then the other thing that's interesting in what you're saying is like the visualization. Because
Yeah,
um, I also have chronic pain, and I'll talk to my pain sometimes.
yeah. Oh,
And
amazing.
I'll talk to it, and I'll be like, "So why are you in like what are you trying to tell me?" "Oh, I'm trying to tell you I'm trying to protect you." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you for pain,
Yeah,
but I don't need that. So
yeah,
I'm going to give you freedom to not do
yeah,
that." And
yeah.
it's again,
Amazing.
it's not like the cure all, but it helps definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you're acknowledging it, you understand that it's there. You're not running away from it. You understand that it's there, and it's something that you haven't. That this isn't new for you. You've experienced this before. You recognise it, and I think putting a positive spin on it as well is definitely a massive step in releasing yourself from it, releasing your body of this negative energy, and releasing yourself of the fear of it as well. Because
Yeah.
for sure, everybody who does go through some sort of chronic illness or chronic pain massively fears that coming back, because it sends us back to that time when we were at our worst. And what we try and do is our body tries to sort of tries to tell you, oh, we've got to get away from this. We've got to, the body's in fact is trying, and the mind is trying to protect itself from this from happening. So for me, for example, when I had IBS attacks, my body recognized that the best way to deal with this was to use the restroom and just
Yeah.
get that over and done with. And then once that was done, we were all good. The problem with that is that I'm not always in the most convenient place to do that, especially in social situations or working or even driving. And I would have
Yeah.
an attack come on, and then my body would go, I know the way to deal with this. We'll just go to the restroom. But when you can't do it, it sends you into this sort of panic, like, oh my God, I can't do that because I'm in a place where
Yeah.
I physically cannot do this. So what am I going to do? So you end up sort of sitting with it. And then you rightly said the way to get rid of this is to perhaps acknowledge it and to talk to it and go, okay, this is happening. That's annoying. Um, you're free to leave at any time, because I'm cool. I don't need this anymore, and
Yeah.
uh, and I'm going to get through it. And definitely, I feel like that comes with sort of dropping the ego about it as well, because the ego protects us as well. And when you remove that and acknowledge that sort of that protection, it's there to help you, but at the same time, it doesn't always help you in the most convenient of ways. So
Yeah.
dropping that part of you, well, I found that for me anyway, especially if I'm not telling myself and my friends, I'm fine, everything's fine, I don't need you, I don't need people's help, I'm okay, I can manage this on my own. Sometimes if you're honest with it and you say to people, yeah, you know what, I'm experiencing a bit of a panic attack at the moment, this is happening, this is I'm experiencing this, I'm going through this at the moment. And for people who are clued up on this, most people would go, oh, okay, cool, is there anything I can do to help? You go, no, not really, just sit with me, or just ignore me just for 10 minutes. They go, oh, okay, cool. And then it goes.
Yeah. So I guess the whole ego thing, can you clarify? I think I know what you mean, but that word is such like a charged word.
Yeah, sure.
The whole ego thing. So when you say ego, what do you mean?
So for me, the ego is something that's there to protect you. It's kind of like a ego in itself is the thing that's pushing you forward and that's driving you. And it's there, essentially, I believe anyway, it's there to sort of protect you and to protect who you are. So let's say, for instance, I'm going through an anxiety attack. My ego is telling me, you're fine, you're better than this, you can get through this, you
Yeah.
don't need anyone, you don't need any help, you're the toughest person in the room, no one's been through this, so they can't understand,
Yeah.
no one knows the suffering that you're going through, you don't, you can do this, like that. So ego in a sense can help you a bit and help you in that in certainly in getting through the worst of it. But the way to rid yourself of it is to drop that ego and just to sort of acknowledge it and take that on. So your ego might tell you, and might sort of tell the world that you don't need anyone and that you're fine and you're strong and all the rest of it. But when we start to incorporate vulnerability into it, we drop the ego, and that will allow for vulnerability. um, I found that vulnerability really sort of helped me open up a door to, to become to healing, and that was like a massive, massive thing for me in my healing journey, was to sort of to drop that ego part and just to say, you know what, actually, I am experiencing these things. I am vulnerable in this way, and I need help. And that's where I started to look for external sources. Beforehand, I was spending years and years and years trying to cure myself. I felt that everybody was failing me. Every time,
Yeah.
I'm sure many of your chronic hope and chronic sufferers that listen to this would know that you go to see 100 doctors and 100 different specialists and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And each time you walk away feeling like they failed you a little bit because they can't offer you the advice, or they can't offer you the steps, or they can't offer you the things that you need to cure yourself. You're like, well, I've paid them to do that and they haven't done that, so I need to help myself. When really, the best way I found to get through it was to drop that sort of ego part and be open to vulnerability and be open to, okay, what could help, what can I take away from this, what are the, even if you took away 5% of an entire course of somebody, let's say you spent an hour with them, and
Yeah.
you've taken away one thing from that that goes towards helping you in healing, then you're like a step closer you're getting you're a step closer to healing. You're a step closer to ridding yourself of this
Yeah.
horrible illness. So vulnerability, I feel like,
Mhm.
works really, really well in that sense. And I feel that, well, for me anyway, that dropping that ego part, dropping that sort of like self-preservation, protectiveness, helped me heal.
Wow, and that's interesting what you say as well around almost having this expectation that other people are gonna have what you need.
Yeah,
How That's so interesting that you say that because 'cause I've been kind of experiencing that. Because I think as people, we do eventually need to get up to a point. I think it's part of potentially the process of maturity
sure.
is realizing that other people aren't gonna meet our needs.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we have to look inside. Like I said before, the internal healing for me is what helps. The self work, the
Yeah,
looking at myself from that third person perspective and acknowledging and being open to what could work for me. So, for instance, let's say, okay, so I had to look at my diet, for instance. I tried every diet under the sun
yeah,
before getting onto what worked for me. So I tried sugar free, I tried wheat free, I tried dairy free, tried wheat and dairy free, I tried the Candida diet, I tried the FODMAP diet. And I did this for
yeah,
sort of year-long blocks at a time. So it wasn't like I tried it for a couple of weeks and went, oh no, this
yeah,
isn't working for me. I tried it for a year at a time. So it has taken me years to get to the position that I'm in now. Now, when I did this, I would improve marginally. I'll go, oh, okay, maybe this is an improvement. And then I would change it up a little bit and go, okay, maybe this is an improvement. But it was always
yeah,
like one step forward, one step back. I couldn't find what was working. I couldn't find really what was working for me properly. Eventually, I got on to trying the plant-based diet. Now, that was something I didn't want to do. I couldn't
yeah,
stand the thought of not having bacon or steak or milkshakes or something like that. I thought, oh God, this is going to be awful. And also during my healing journey, I was fluctuating in weight a lot. So I would eat foods that I thought were good for me and I would drop a load of weight. And then I would eat foods that weren't so good for me and that weight would come back on. But of course, with the oncoming weight came the symptoms as well. So
yeah,
for IBS healing, you have to find what works for you dietary wise. Now, I'm not pushing like a vegan agenda, and I'm not pushing, a plant-based lifestyle for everybody. However, when you do eat from scratch and when you do cut out things which are hard for the body to process, like lots of meat and dairy, and things like and artificial foods, convenience foods, microwave foods, that sort of thing, you get rid of those and you start to become present again with food. That massively, massively helped me. I had to learn how to cook, whereas I didn't really know how to cook before. So I
yeah,
had to learn how to do that. And when you start doing that, you start to appreciate the food that you're eating. You're not just eating out of necessity anymore. You're enjoying what you're cooking. It's not like today I'm going to have a microwave carbonara. It was like, okay, today I need to have something different. I'm going to make a spaghetti from scratch, and I'm going to make the bolognese from lentils and shiitake mushrooms and
yeah,
chopped tomatoes and all this sort of goodness. And once you throw all this stuff together, and then you eat it, you realize you're putting love and energy into this. So that
yeah,
in turn really, really helps as well. So I found that dropped, once I got rid of the basically the shite foods, the stuff that I really didn't want to eat, and all that sort of garbage food, and I incorporated a healthy, decent food. That massively, massively helped me.
yeah. I think it's interesting that you say that because I think what I've learned with this whole chronic illness journey is that everybody's body is different, right? So what works for one person isn't going to necessarily work for another person. And it's so important what you're saying about like trying different things. I think it's really good that you tried different diets and then you landed on the one that's worked for you.
Definitely, it
Because
took years though.
yeah,
It took 10 years
yeah,
easily.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I want to tell people as well that who are listening that not to give up hope about this as well. If you are going through a chronic illness, you are going through something that it feels like it's going to be forever, or it's something that in fact is just a sort of this is just part of life at the moment for you, to never ever give up hope, and to never give up hope of ridding yourself of this, or at least managing it and changing your lifestyle and adapting your lifestyle so you can manage this and you can live a really decent, fulfilling life, but without letting this become you. I think for some of us, the chronic illness becomes us, and we become that person. I am suffering with this, therefore I am this,
Yeah.
and then put restrictions on ourselves on what we can and can't do. Whereas if you if you're not to give up hope, if you're to sort of, continue to push yourself forward and have a lot of self-belief about what you can do. Obviously, there are limitations and boundaries as well. You have to set yourself so that you don't crash and so that this whole thing doesn't become a massive failure for you. But I feel that if you continue to think positively, and you continue to imagine that this is going to get better, this is going to, I can do this. I need to reach out to external sources and see and be open to possibilities of changing things. I
Yeah.
feel like that positivity can propel ourselves forward, and
Yeah.
inevitably we might be able to rid ourselves of this as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things where making sure to have that positive mindset, and it's not easy. I'm definitely not saying it's easy, and I know that you aren't as well, because it's so hard, but it's actually the little things that can make that difference. Like even just with chronic hope, we've decided to use the language of like, instead of saying someone's suffering from a chronic illness, we say this person is living with a chronic illness.
Yeah, that's
And
a great
it's
way.
just that very small change of word that takes the person from being almost like the victim of a chronic illness to their overcoming it, to their living with it, to their,
Yeah, that sounds
if does that make
fantastic.
sense? And then
Absolutely.
also making sure that we're like, rather than saying this person is disabled, saying this person is living with a disability.
Yeah,
Or and just
absolutely.
changing the language around that, or I live with chronic pain. I am experiencing chronic pain, but I- and not saying I am in
Yeah,
pain, because
absolutely.
you're actually like saying that you actually are pain or in
You can
pain.
disassociate yourself from it, perhaps.
So yeah, you disassociate yourself, and even just changing the language can really have a massive impact, I think, on just the way you start to think about yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, you're removing the victim part of it from that as well. When I've been going through talking about the pain that I've overcome, I tend to say suffering because obviously I'm now not suffering with it. So I'm sort of recanting the tales of what I was
Yeah.
going through, in hope that it would relate and resonate with people who perhaps are going through this. But I really like your take on living with it rather than suffering with it. I think I might start incorporating that actually, Jane. That's a really good idea.
Well, thank you, and I hope I actually heard it from someone else. I don't remember who. It was kind of someone like said that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's actually so true. We have to be careful around the language that we're using."
Mm,
Um, but and even if you look at do different languages, like for example, in French, I don't know if you speak French, but the way that they word things is
yeah,
rather than saying I am hungry, they say I
yeah.
have hunger, or
Ah,
uh,
yeah,
I am in pain, I have pain. And
yeah,
I don't know if that was like an intentional thing, but it's like it's again that disassociation of like I am not that thing, but I have that
yeah,
thing, and
yeah, yeah. That's it. So you're saying that this is something that needs to be fulfilled, or something that there's like a destination, or a something that you need to sort of, that you need to do, rather than I am this thing. I am hungry. I am in pain. I am a chronic sufferer. You could change that
yeah.
to, I am currently living with chronic pain, but hopefully this won't be for the rest of my life.
Yeah, or honestly, I think because and I've talked about this on many episodes before this. We talk about the statistics around chronic illness. So
Mm,
statistically, 1 in 2 Australians has a chronic illness. 7 out of 10 Americans have a chronic illness. I'm not sure what the
wow.
statistic is in the UK, but it's very common. Chronic illness
Yeah.
is very common,
Yeah.
and that includes mental health, cancer, arthritis, IBS,
Yeah.
chronic fatigue, etc., a whole wide
Yeah.
range. So it's actually almost getting to the point where, especially in the Western world,
Yeah.
chronic health conditions are the norm,
Yeah.
which is really
Absolutely.
unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it's why we need to start to, in my view, need to start to shift our perspective around these conditions, because it's so normal that
Yeah.
it's what I want to do, and what I think is talked
Yeah.
about a lot in the community is making sure that people know that just because they're living with something or struggling or have some sort of
Yeah.
condition, that doesn't mean that they're less than anyone else. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they're less of a person or less capable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things as well that I've come to sort of understand about these conditions and about most of these chronic illnesses, not definitely not all, but a lot of them. I believe that a lot of them stem from lifestyle and social expectation. I think that
Okay.
in the Western world, we live a lifestyle that is totally, totally unhealthy for us. We are busy worker ants, most of us. We are told from a very young age that this is what success looks like and this is what you need to aspire to be.
Yeah.
So, being influential, having lots of money, being in positions of power, these are what you should aspire to be. Celebrity is something that you should aspire to be. But in all of these positions, and especially the journey in getting to there, can be really detrimental to our health. So we end up sacrificing a lot of our health for wealth.
Yeah.
And I feel that especially in the Western world, our core values are centered around things that are extremely detrimental to our health. Whereas if you were to do things which are really healthy for you, for instance, you could take a day off, you cook good food for yourself, you surround yourself by friends, family that you like rather than dislike, or
Yeah.
you surround yourself by people who will champion you rather than influential people who you think will champion your social status. You take time out for yourself. You write, you read, you be creative. To somebody else who is coming from that current Western lifestyle, they might look at that and go, "So you did nothing that day. You weren't very productive. In fact, you might be lazy." And you can actually say to that, "Well, no, I wasn't actually. I
Yeah.
loved it. I really enjoyed that, and it was really really good for me." So I feel that the Western this sort of Western style lifestyle that we're living right now, it's not good for us. I feel that we have to change that, and we have to change what's important and what we aspire to be. I feel like we should be aspiring to be aligned with the people that we're supposed to be. We find something that we really enjoy doing and something that we recognize we are gifted with and that we can gift the world with, and find a way to make money and to live on doing that. That I think would eliminate so many chronic illnesses.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you touch on like this whole rest and slowing down, and that's something that I have definitely learned since having chronic fatigue syndrome. And
You
because
time.
when it kind of got back into normal life after recovering, my default, as because of my personality, is type A, overdo it, do too much, etc., etc. But coming out of chronic fatigue, was very quickly and very much aware that that couldn't continue to be the way I lived my life. So
Sure.
one thing that
Sure.
I developed, a practice that I developed with while I had chronic fatigue, is taking 1 day a week and turning my phone off, making it a day of rest. I'm introverted, so I don't see anyone. I
Sure.
spend time with myself. I do things I like. I go to my favorite cafe for a swim. I don't talk to
Amazing.
anyone. It's my day to cry,
Yeah.
process emotions,
Yeah.
to process my week and be like
Yeah.
and acknowledge things that were either hurtful or joyful,
Yeah.
and I just slow down.
Yeah.
And then it's like
How
it's
do
a
you feel after
reset.
that?
Feel really great. It's a reset. It's like my soul is alive
Cleanse.
again, and
Yeah.
I'm able to live fully during the week. And I actually kind of am in this space where I'm doing a lot in my life. So I'm working part-time, I'm studying full-time, and then I also run Chronic Hope and a
Wow.
team of 5 volunteers, etc.
Busy.
So it's a lot.
Yeah.
And people are like, "How do you manage it all?" And I kind of am just like, "I rest." That's my answer is I rest. I
Yeah.
manage it because I rest and I have a super full on week, but I'm making sure I'm getting enough sleep. I'm making sure I'm journaling in the morning, spending time kind of with myself. And then every week I rest. For a
Amazing.
full day. And
Amazing.
it's revolutionary in my life.
Yeah.
And I definitely
Yeah.
would recommend it for, I mean, for other people, just giving yourself that permission to rest. And again, I think it goes back to what you're saying with ego is like, we want to come across as like we're so busy and doing all of these things and all of
Mm.
that. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
actually doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Would you say that you're more introverted or extroverted?
I'm definitely an introvert.
Yeah, good. You're an introvert. So you've recognized that even though you live a really, really busy lifestyle, you've recognized that you need time to be that introvert and to be that person. So that's when you take that day for yourself, where
Yeah.
you can go and have you time and introvert time. You journal, you go to a cafe, you don't speak to anybody, and that's kind of like grounding, I guess, for you.
Yeah.
You can sort of ground yourself in that sense and basically kind of like reset and become who you, become more of the person that you are. Also, I really like what you said as well about the crying as well. I
Yeah.
find that when I'm doing meditation, that my when I start to get into it after about sort of 5 or 10 minutes, my eyes really stream. They start to stream tears.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there crying as such. What my body's doing is that it's letting go of stress, and that's the way
Yeah.
that I do. So I sit there and breathe deep, and I listen to. I don't know. Sometimes I don't listen to anything. I just do nothing. But when I feel like I need that little bit of help, I'll go into a guided meditation, and I'll listen to something that resonates with me at that time. And what happens is that my eyes just start streaming and streaming and streaming, and that's my body's way of releasing that pent up maybe stress from the week or negative energy or something that's maybe hit me in the week that I haven't dealt with or spoken on. And that's my way of doing it. So I really like that.
Yeah, I think our bodies all have different ways to process emotions as well, and that's my way of processing because I tend to ignore my emotions, ignore, and then Sunday or like which is usually my day of rest. It's my day to be like, okay, emotions, I'm going to acknowledge you and
Yeah.
give you space,
And
you
again,
know?
that comes down to that social conditioning again, doesn't it? Because technology has made it so that we don't have any excuses now not to be
Yeah.
superhumans. We don't have any excuses now not to be the best versions of ourselves because of technology. But it's also something that can really not be too great for our lives as well. Like, for instance, if we're constantly on Instagram, I found that this year for me has been a new one for Instagram. I've never done Instagram before. When we went into the first lockdown, I decided that I'm really going to start pushing out my business, my life coaching, what I want to do. And the way to reach people and the way obviously that we connected was through Instagram.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, I love it. I really enjoy using it, and it's a great way for me to launch what I do and to reach potential clients and get onto great podcasts like this. But I find that if I am constantly on Instagram and it's constantly ping, 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 it's going off all the time and I'm answering it and I'm looking at it, I find that kind of a bit stressful, actually.
Yeah.
So I found that I've learned how to limit myself on it. There's a setting that you can go onto it on notifications, and I'm sure you know about it, and it will say it will block for 1 hour, for 2 hours, or
Yeah.
something like that. So I tend to do that during the day, and then I'll go and hit it for an hour and then step away from it for a little bit, you know, unless I'm speaking to clients, of course, in which case I'm more on it because I want to get them in, I want to get that done. So I find that limiting, perhaps I'd say in summary, I think the technology is great and I really enjoy using it, but I feel like if we're using it all the time, and we go along with this kind of like this Western sort of style of being busy, it tends to be detrimental to us because we're not acknowledging the things that are perhaps building up for us. You know,
Yeah.
that we're not acknowledging stresses, we're not acknowledging the pain that we're going through, and especially again, that's kind of almost backed up on Instagram when you're looking at the feed and you're looking at the best of what everyone's bringing you. Someone's on holiday, someone's got like this great vacation they're doing, someone's just bought a house, someone's got a new car, and you're thinking, oh my God, my life's totally not like this. I think stepping away from that for a little bit and acknowledging, do you know what? I feel a little bit hurt by that. I feel like I haven't got this stuff just yet. I will have it, but I haven't got it just yet. So I'm gonna need that time away. I'm gonna need some grounding time. I need some time to reset and be thankful and incorporate some gratitude into my life about what I do have, and and bring that positivity back again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting that you bring up the social media thing because I was actually having a conversation with my team last week about it. Because going back to me being introverted,
Mm,
I'm actually quite a private person. My default is to be private. I don't like sharing my life on social media as much. But I also feel that with chronic hope, and I'm sure you feel this as well, with what we've been through and walked through and learned, there is an opportunity to share that. And I guess I have to um, set my own preferences aside to
yeah,
be like, no, this is actually for the better of other people. If I can
yeah,
use my journey to inspire other people, connect with other people on platforms like
yeah,
I connected with you, it's beyond me. It's beyond my preference, but it's also okay to set boundaries around that. So we were just talking around similar to what you're saying is like maybe I'll be on there certain days
yeah,
and other days I won't be on there, and I'm still actually trying to work that out, but I've had to start putting my phone in the other room when I'm studying or because
distraction.
it's a distraction, it's addicting. My phone calls to me and it's not
Yeah.
healthy.
No, that's right. And I think we're all, because social media is such a new thing, it's only been running since, what, let's say, I think I first got into social media in 2005, six, something like
Yeah.
that. And then Facebook came along in 2007. And that was the thing that sort of really, really sort of, super launched social media, because it is still a relatively new concept to our society. We're unfamiliar, or we don't really know about the detriments that it can have to our lifestyle as well. You know, it's like, it's like introducing a new product, like for instance I would say like vaping or something
Yeah.
like that. Looks good, great alternative to smoking, but we don't know what the long-term effects are of doing this. And equally with social media, we don't know what the long-term effects are of us using this. Is it reprogramming our brains? Um,
Yeah.
is it making us go into this massive sense of comparison, and to other people as well? Are we keeping up with the Joneses in a totally new way? Are we becoming ungrounded and not present because we are living in the virtual world rather than in the physical world? These can all be, don't get me wrong, I quite like social media,
Yeah.
and I equally the same as you. I'm introverted as much as I am extroverted. There are times like now, for instance, where I'll be really extroverted, but there are times where I need to be grounded the same as you, when I need to do my introvert stuff and my introvert work. I need to journal, I need to write, be creative, play music, write poetry, something like that, that really works for me. And if I'm bombarding social media with what I'm doing, look at me doing this or look at me doing that. I'm not saying, look, if this works for you as a person, if this works for anyone who's listening to this, and that's working for them, it's making them feel good, and they're enjoying it, then fair play. Go ahead and continue as you are. But if it's also making you feel as if you have to do it, you have to go onto it, um, you have to post for the day, you have to go and do something, that's detrimental. That's not working. That's not working for you. It's working against you. So
Yeah.
learning to take some time out for yourself from it, I feel would really help.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of those things that's really important. And so I guess kind of piggybacking off of that, you're obviously in lockdown, spending a lot of time kind of by yourself in your house, probably trying to not spend all of that time on social media.
Sure,
What
sure.
what are some recommendations you would have for other people in this season or not in this season, like books, podcasts,
Sure.
music?
I've got a few. I'll tell you some of probably the top three maybe that works for
Okay.
me. Okay. Being in touch with nature, going out on walks.
Yeah.
That's something I find incredibly helpful for my mental health, for my for grounding, and to keep present as well. So this year, when we went into the first lockdown, I had to keep my mind busy. Otherwise, I think I was going to go mental. I was
Yeah.
going to lose the plot. I felt that lockdown was kind of taking away a lot of our social liberties and things that we take for granted. And then we had to spend a lot of time indoors. In the UK, we were allowed 1 hour of external, in meaning out of the house exercising. And
Yeah.
in that time, what I was doing was I was going out for walks. We've got a huge woodland near us, and I would walk around this massive woods that we have, and I'll just go on like an hour-long walk there, and basically just look at trees and look at nature and
Yeah.
try and sort of, let's say, just try and absorb the atmosphere, I guess. And luckily enough for us, we don't always get good weather in the UK, but we had an incredible spring, and it was just awesome. It was sun was out every day, and I
Wow.
made use of that every day. So I would say going out for big walks, getting in touch with nature. Oh, I also started growing vegetables as well.
Oh,
That
that's
I
awesome.
It was so good. It's something I'm continuing now. I really enjoyed it. So we made I grew lots of sort of zucchinis and tomatoes and spring onions. Just this
I
sort of
love
stuff
that.
really. And it was great. I mean, I sound like an old man, but I really enjoyed it. It was just so much
We
fun.
are all channeling our inner old men and
Yeah,
women
yeah,
these
yeah,
days.
yeah. I think these guys they've got some secrets to teach us. So I think just really acknowledging how much fun that was to do that, and also to you're creating as well. You're making something, and then you get to eat it, and it definitely tastes better. It tastes better when you've grown your own veggies. So
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. It gave me a chance anyway to be in touch with nature, to be creative, and anyway, just going out on the walks was just great for fresh air, to get out of the house, to change the environment, to change up how I felt. And every time I got back from a walk, I felt energized, recharged. I
Yeah.
think the Japanese have a word for it. I can't remember what it is, but it means like forest bathing.
Ichik. Oh no. Okay.
It's
I
something
don't
I
know.
can't remember. Yeah, it's something that, and they there was a scientific study that was done out there which showed that people actually become a lot more relaxed when they are surrounded by nature. So hence why we have indoor plants in
Yeah.
in a lot of houses. We like to be in touch with nature. So that would be something that I would really recommend. Another thing for me, meditation. It's something that I've been
Yeah.
doing before, and it's something that I continue to do now. I listen to there's a I guess there are podcasts. It's like a group of podcasts from a American company called Hay House. You've probably heard of it.
I haven't. No.
No, no? Okay. So these guys, Hay House. But basically, it's a platform where lots of different people put up their own versions of guided meditation. So somebody could just do
Okay.
music. Someone's just doing a spoken one. Sometimes people do music and speaking. There are some sort of fairly famous people in there as well. And there are beginners and people who are just starting out in this. And I'll scroll through and I'll find a voice, or I'll find something that resonates with me. Like I said, they've got hundreds on their channel, and I'll find something that resonates with me and I'll put it on. Usually it's a guided one because I quite like listening to soothing voices
Yeah.
and people that that are just sort of guiding you through this. Sometimes I find when I meditate, I'm trying to do the breathing exercises, but if I've had a busy week or if I'm particularly stressed, my mind's going and I find it
Yeah.
really hard to switch off from that. So listening to a soothing, guided, meditative voice really helps me to release negative energy, and helps to ground me as well. So yeah, I would say meditation for sure would really help. Reading. I'm reading. Okay, you're going to know this guy, Tony Robbins,
Oh yeah.
Anthony
Definitely. I know
Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
Right, sure. So I'm reading the Giant, Awaken the Giant Within. That's what it's called.
Yeah. I've heard of that.
So yeah, it's a cool book. It's really good. So I'm reading, it's in depth. My God, it's just really, really in depth. So it's taken me a while to get through it. Um, this book is it's a mammoth book, and it is going into, he'll give you an idea, and then there'll be a sort of like a sub idea between that, and then there'll be three ideas off of that. So it's
Wow.
really, really in depth. And I'm really enjoying listening to his, or reading his journey, his story, and what he's incorporated into his life, to essentially to propel him to where he is now. And I'm thinking, in time, what I would like to do would be inspirational speaking and stage
Wow.
work, and that, so taking somebody like him who is doing that, finding ideas and resonating with his energy, I find really starting to help me in my journey. So yeah, finding a good book. You don't have to read that book, of course. That's just something that I'm finding works for me. But
No, I think that's great. I think I've definitely heard a lot about Tony Robbins, and especially in like the business space and like
mm,
chronic
yeah,
illness and self-help and all of that sort of thing. So
yeah, he
check it out.
touches a lot upon about what you said earlier about not allowing yourself to be a victim as well.
Yeah.
He talks about mindset and how we can help ourselves, and that really resonated with me. That was something that I've been doing for a long time. So reading up on somebody else who's gone through a similar experience, albeit that it's not, his wasn't so much, his wasn't IBS, but
Yeah.
he's at a position that he's doing the sort of work that I want to be doing. So that resonated with me, so that's why I'm reading that. But
That's
even
awesome.
just reading like a decent fictional book or something like that, it takes you away from, it takes you away from where you are currently, and it kind of dives you into, you're still present, you're still there, you're absorbed in that, but you're not, you're not mindlessly scrolling on YouTube or Instagram, and it's not like bang 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 bang, which I think, again, which I don't think is very, very good for our health. In short doses, I think would be okay. But let's say, for instance, if you spent an hour on social media and you're being met with ad, commercial, commercial, commercial. Look at
Yep.
this person, commercial. Look at this, commercial, and I just don't think it's very, very good for us. So, but I find reading particularly relaxing, and also you learn a lot from it as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that.
I'm similar as well with that. Being an introvert, love reading.
Yeah, yeah, for
Well,
sure. You
thank
journal as well, don't you?
yeah, I journal, I write poetry, journal,
Amazing.
read.
I do poetry as well. I love it.
We'll have to do a podcast where we share some of our poetry.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Why
That'd be
not? We
awesome.
could make one up
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
spot.
That'd be awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming and joining me for a chat today. It's been
My
really,
pleasure.
I feel like time has flown and it's been really awesome chatting with you. Was looking forward to this podcast and
Oh, me too. Me too. Thank you so, so much for having me on. I've really, really appreciated it. And for anyone who's made it right the way through to the end as well, thank you so much for joining us and for listening and tuning in to us. And I hope you've enjoyed the chat as much as we have. I think we've we've
yeah,
smashed it,
we've
haven't
we've
we?
been doing
And
well.
wow, it's gone quick, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Well, anyway, thanks again.
Thanks very much, Jamie. All the best to you.